Hello everybody! It's been a little while, mainly because I have been sick and then I was unwell and then I was very busy and then I had family visiting. It's been a little bit crazy around here. I am not super high energy right now, so I decided today I wanted to just talk about what I am currently reading, some of my plans, my hopes for what I can read by the end of this year. And then I also have a little bit of a book haul to share with you because very exciting. Yesterday I went to one of my favorite bookstores for the first time since 2019, I think, since pre-pandemic. I bought some books and then some of my pre-orders also arrived, so I've got a stack of things I'm quite excited about. So let's talk about that. So first up, I am still listening to the audiobook of The Ministry for the Future by Kim Stanley Robinson. This is his latest novel. It's like a near future science fiction about like drastic action to address climate change, and it's a very interesting novel. I think I'm probably enjoying it more listening to it than if I were reading it in print, which is interesting. That's not what I would typically expect from a Robinson novel, but yeah, so I'm glad that I'm listening to it, and we'll see how that goes. I need to concentrate when I am listening to the story, so I haven't been picking it up a lot recently because I've just been like listening to music and zoning out. That tells you where my brain has been, but yeah, I will eventually finish this audiobook. I am also reading Ocean's Echo by Everina Maxwell. This is another novel set in the same world as her first book, which was Winter's Orbit. I binge read Winter's Orbit. It's not like the best thing I've ever read, but it was compulsively readable in a very, very like tropey fan fiction way. I'll talk about that more when I do my October wrap up. But anyway, I went straight into reading this next book. It's not a sequel, but it's set in the same universe. And I think that this particular one is more sci-fi, with like people's abilities to read minds or compel people to do things, and less the romance aspect that Winter's Orbit had. But I'm not very far into it. I'm like maybe 15% into this book, so still kind of figuring out what it is. It is once again very compulsively readable, but I'm not really sure what to expect from it, I guess. So we'll see how that one goes. Then I have gotten quite a ways into Engine Summer by John Crowley. This is one of the SF Masterworks that I own that I would like to get read by the end of this year. More on that in a second. I've had this sitting around for a number of years now. I had tried to read it 2 years ago, maybe. I think I included it in a try a chapter video at one point, and I kind of bounced off of it. It just didn't make much sense to me in the first couple of like, I don't know, 20 pages, 2 chapters or something. And I was like, well, that's gonna be a weird read. And then like 2 weeks ago, I picked it up again and I read like 80 pages in one sitting and was like, wow, this is so different from my first impression of it years ago. Yeah, it's actually been a really interesting read. And the book that comes to mind while I'm reading it, oddly enough, is Always Coming Home by Ursula Le Guin. Now, I'm not saying that this is the same kind of world-building story setting as Always Coming Home, but there's something about the vibe of it, like the intent of the story, that I keep thinking about Always Coming Home. Anyway, it's not exactly like a post-apocalyptic kind of novel, but it's definitely like human society crashed hundreds of years ago, and there's a new society, a new way of living, and the main character is like telling his story to a mysterious person who knows way more about the world and like the peak of human civilization than he does. It's a really interesting perspective. I am very much enjoying it, and I'll probably finish this book in a day or two. And the last thing that I have currently started is the Rosa Versailles Volume 3 by Ryoka Ikeda. I think this is 4 volumes long, like these 4 big omnibuses, and then the 5th one is like a collection of bonus comics or something, which I don't really intend on reading, but I'm going to read the main story of the Rosa Versailles. So this is a manga that ran in the 1970s. I think it's one of the really big original shoujo manga that just blew up at that time. So it's very, very influential and has really pretty artwork. It is also incredibly melodramatic. It's really fun, but difficult to take any of it seriously. It is about the French Revolution. So it's modeled on like the real life people and events and some of the conspiracies and romances of the time, but it's definitely got like a fictional main character, and it's just, everything is taken to the nth degree. I enjoy it a lot. It's actually a pretty fluffy read without too much like horrific angst, though I will say that there's been more of this like ominous storyline with the main character Oscar, who is a woman raised as a man essentially, but everybody knows that she was born a woman. And I think there's like hints, like these coded scenes of sexual violence, which has thrown me out of the story somewhat. I was not expecting that, and I'm kind of disturbed because I'm not sure if I really understand what the euphemisms in the storyline intend, but I'm pretty sure that there was like rape depicted on page, and that it was like, what? I did not expect that. So despite that, a lot of it is quite fluffy and romantic and fun, but then you have these moments where I'm just not really sure. So yeah, the Rosa Versailles. It's been a fun read so far. So those are all the things that I have currently started reading, and there are so many other things I want to start. I have stacks of books in my house. Like I've made these little like stacks, like categories of like, oh, these are the short things I want to read right now, and here are the new releases I want to get to by the end of the year. All my library books that I've checked out that I want to read. It's a bit of a mess. I'm never going to read all these things. There's simply not enough time in the day, but I like having a plan. I have purposely avoided having lots of like challenges and TBRs. I've barely even tracked like my reading statistics this year on purpose, because it's just, this year has just been a thing. So I made it extremely low stakes for myself, but I like reading challenges. I like reading with some sort of purpose or intent. I'm naturally just like a list maker. I like making TBRs. I don't talk about them a lot of the time because they tend to be very personal, and I'm just not going to talk about them, but I do that all the time, and I'm just getting that itch that like I want to actually make a little bit of a project to read some specific things by the end of the year. So I will have that satisfaction, like the enjoyment of reading the things, but also the satisfaction of having accomplished something intentional with this particular hobby this year. So yeah, there are two things that I keep thinking about that I want to do. And the first one is to read all of the SF Masterworks that I own. I collect SF Masterworks. I'm pretty picky about the ones that I actually buy these days, and I've been putting off buying any more of them until I've read the ones that I've had sitting around for years. And for some reason, I just started picking them up recently. I've read 2, I think, and I'm on to my 3rd, and I've only got like 2 more to read. So I would like to read the ones that I own by the end of the year and then buy a new batch of them that I'm more excited about. No, wait, I have 3 more. So I pulled them off of my shelf. So I'm currently reading Engine Summer, and then I got these 3 left. I have Mockingbird by Walter Tevis, which I did buy earlier this year, I think, and I'm pretty excited about this one. I did like The Man Who Fell to Earth. That was a really interesting read. And then I have The Shockwave Rider by John Brunner, which I've always been curious about this one. I did not particularly like Stand on Zanzibar by Brunner, but I still think about that book to this day. Like, there are still things about reading that book that have stuck in my memory. And I've heard actually some good things about Shockwave Rider as I think like one of the earliest, if not the earliest, cyberpunk novel. And cyberpunk is something I still don't know if I like it or not. And then I have Ridley Walker by Russell Hoban, which is one of the hardcover masterworks, which are a little bit rarer. And I really don't know much about this, and I've always wanted to find out what it is. So yeah, maybe I will get these 3 read by the end of the year. I will definitely be starting Mockingbird as soon as I'm done with Engine Summer. The second thing that I would like to do is read more 2022 releases by the end of the year. I've had this goal in mind that I like to read 60 releases from this year, and I think I only need to read like 10 10 more to hit that number. If I read like closer to 65, that would be probably half of the ones that I know that I want to read, that I know about so far, if that makes any sense. Anyway, I'm chasing this number, and I've had a lot of success with like reading and enjoying books published this year, just getting to newer things, fresher things, reading them when I'm actually excited about them rather than waiting months or years to finally get around to them. You know, that typically works out better. So I don't lack for books to read that are published this year. I'm gonna show you some of them in a second. But I do know that this coming week, two of the ones that I want to get to are very short. One of them is High Times in the Low Parliament by Kelly Robson, which I bought when I was at Worldcon in Chicago. Gosh, that was what, 2 months ago now? Time, it's disappeared. I also have volume 7 of Monstrous by Marjorie Liu and Sana Takeda, which for some reason I haven't read yet. This is also published this year. So these two, that'd be 2 out of 10 that I want to read. And then I have so many other like novels published this year that I want to get to, and I own a bunch of them. So we'll see if I accomplish this. I would like to just set aside like a week or 2 weeks, so maybe sometime in December, to only read books published this year. I think I would have fun with that. We'll see if it happens though. And the last thing that I want to show you in this very jumbled video, I did not have good like transitions today, sorry. I got a stack of books yesterday between getting my pre-orders from bookshop.org, and then I went to my favorite local bookstore. I say local, it's not actually that close to me, but whatever. I hadn't been to this bookstore in person since, it must have been like maybe late 2019. It was definitely pre-pandemic because the bookstore was closed to in-person shopping for a very, very long time. So finally made it there again, and it was so worth it. It's a very small bookstore, but they have really good selection, and especially like in their SFF section. I got 4 books from this bookstore. The first one I've actually already read and talked about. This is Spear by Nicola Griffith, which is very likely to end up on my favorite books of the year list, which is why I wanted a copy, but also it's by Nicola Griffith. She's really one of my favorite authors. I don't talk about her very much. She's not an extremely prolific author, so I just don't talk about her books that much, but she is such an amazing author. And this is basically an Arthurian retelling that I really, really enjoy. Just stunning writing, a really good concept, good characters. I will reread it at some point, so I needed a copy. I really love the artwork on the cover of this too. What is, oh, jacket art by Rovina Kai. I should have known. Rovina Kai is an amazing artist, so I have a copy of this, and it is great. I highly recommend it. I also broke down and I bought a copy of Signal to Noise by Silvia Moreno Garcia. I've been going back and forth about whether I would buy this because I can always get it from the library. My library has all of her books, so I don't lack access to them, but for some reason I kept saying, oh, I'll finally read this book when this new edition is released because I really like the cover of it. So when I saw it in the bookstore, I said, okay, I will buy it. This is her first novel, I think. When was it published? It's weird that I haven't read this one. I don't know why. Okay, it's published in 2015, so yeah. And this is the Rebellion edition, or Solaris, whichever one you want to say. So yeah, I will get to this eventually, and I think I'm going to enjoy it. Just what I've heard about it sounds like it will be kind of a, what is it, like 1980s fantasy around music and mixtapes, I think. That's what I vaguely remember people saying about it. I should not throw things on the floor while I'm talking, because then I can't cut it out. Then I bought The Song of the Cell, An Exploration of Medicine and the New Human by Siddhartha Mukherjee. You may or may not know that The Gene by Mukherjee is one of my favorite nonfiction books ever. I adore reading about genetics, and that book is like my top recommendation if you want to know about the history of genetics. Go read that. It's amazing. So I have been waiting for something else by Mukherjee for a while. I've never been able to read his first book, The Emperor of All Maladies, because it's about cancer, and I cannot read medical nonfiction. That's just an absolute no-go zone for me. But this one is, I don't know, cell biology. So I flipped through it in the bookstore and decided I was just going to buy my own copy of it because it's highly likely that I will super, super enjoy it. So I got that. And then I got, this is sad, like I did not know that this book existed until a couple of weeks ago, which is crazy because I am actually a big fan of XKCD. This is What If 2 by Randall Munroe. The first What If came out in 2014, I think. I believe it was one of my top 10 favorite books from that year. In fact, I loved it. I've been reading XKCD for many, many years now, and I love the comic, and I love the style of Randall Munroe's humor and stuff. So what does this actually say what it's about? Because I'm not sure I can describe it myself. Basically, very serious scientific answers to ridiculous questions and hypotheses. Want to know what would happen if you rode a helicopter blade, built a billion-story building, made a lava lamp out of lava, or jumped on a geyser as it erupted? So, okay. And of course it is illustrated with all the comics and the XKCD style throughout, which makes it extremely fun. The first What If had a really fantastic illustration on the inside of the dust jacket. This one does not. It's completely blank. What's up, Riverhead Books? It does have it's a T-Rex riding a rocket. And then, after I got home from the bookstore, I had 2 of my pre-orders arrive, and I'm very excited about both of them. The first is The World We Make by N.K. Jemisin, which is the second in this contemporary fantasy series, and I still don't like the cover. I really don't like the cover style for this series, but I'm excited about the continuing story in this. I really feel like the first novel was a lot of setup. It was interesting. The commentary of it was interesting, but I didn't really know where like the bulk of the story would come from. So I think that that's what my expectations are for the second novel, is like, let's really get this story underway. And then another beautiful book, I have Sea Sparrow by Kristen Cashore. This is the latest in the Graceling Realm series. I can't believe that a new book has come out, what, like a year, 2 years after the last one. There are often like 6-7 years in between the books in the series, so I'm very happy. What does this one say it's about? I'm trying to avoid spoilers here. Okay, this sounds like it continues on very soon after the events of Winterkeep, so I'm not going to read the blurb. I don't want to have any spoilers for characters and events here, but yeah, I'm excited. I think this is going to continue the story of quite a few of the characters that I really care about at this point, like Bitterblue and Hava and people like that. So yes, and I do love the cover art as well. This series has gone through a number of cover art iterations, and I like this style the best. This cover art is by Corey Huang, and I feel like I know that name from somewhere. Anyway, I really like this style, and I'm a little bit sad that I don't have matching copies of the entire series, but what can you do? I have the first 3 books in paperbacks from quite a few years ago, so there we go. So almost all of these are 2022 releases, and some of them are pretty chunky books, but I may get through a few of them by the end of the year as well. I think that is everything I have to share, actually, so that's what I'm currently reading. Half-baked ideas for like a TBR for the end of the year and a book haul. Let me know what you are up to. What are you currently reading? Is there anything you've read recently that you would really recommend? Definitely let me know, and I'll be back soon to talk to you again, and until then, bye.